Welcome back to Lesson 3 in this series of lessons covering music theory at Grade 5 ABRSM. I'll tell you now that this lesson is so full of Italian words that you might not want to watch it a second time or even a first time. However, stick with it and you will at least hear the words as they're meant to be pronounced. Over the years, I've heard some really strange mispronunciations of Italian music directions caused by students applying the rules of English spelling and pronunciation. At Grade 5 Theory, you also need to know 6 words in French and 6 in German. I'm going to be quite frank here. I cannot see what good is gained by learning 6 words in each of French and German, especially when we don't cover the same 6 words translated from English. Again, bear with me, you will at least get some idea of how they should be spoken. Before we get into the joys of learning lots of words in 3 languages, I just want to fill in a few gaps in terms of stave notation, and much of what follows you may well already know. This is the sign for a pause. Wait on notes which have these. The first one printed above the stave is far more commonly used, but you need to be able to recognise both as pauses. This sign does not tell you by how much you should extend the notes on which they are printed. It is a matter for you as the performer to decide. This is the sign for a multi-bar rest. In this case, a rest of 4 bars. You should really only come across this sign in orchestral or band parts, and it's a useful way of saving paper and printing costs again. This sign means play the music an octave higher than written, and this sign means play the music an octave lower than written. In piano music, you'll see this for those pieces which are at either end of the keyboard and make life much easier when you consider the alternative is to work out notes with lots of those little ledger lines. A passage where most of the notes in it would have to be written consistently with much more than 2 ledger lines ought really to be tidied up by using these signs. The effect of these signs comes to an end at the end of the dashed line. Incidentally, speaking of dashed lines, you'll often see these in conjunction with accelerando, stringendo, rallentando, ritardando, ritenuto, perdendosi, morendo, smorzando, to indicate where the tempo changes end. And finally, before we get into the list of words, we have this, the metronome mark, here telling us that there are 88 crotchets per minute. Okay, now for the list of Italian moods. There are 32 of them. Affettuoso, tenderly. Agitato, agitated. Amabile, pleasant. Animato, animated or lively. Appassionato, with passion. Cantabile, in a singing style. Cantando, singing. Con dolore, with grief. Con forza, with force. Con spirito, with spirit. Deciso or deciso. Deciso, with determination. Dolce, sweetly. Doloroso, sorrowful. Energico, energetic. Espressivo, usually abbreviated as express, expressive or expressively. Giocoso, playful or merry. Grazioso, gracefully. Leggero, lightly. Alla marcia, in the style of a march. Maestoso, majestic. Marcato, abbreviated as mark, emphatic or accented. Mesto, sadly. Misterioso, mysteriously. Pesante, heavy. Risoluto, bold or strong. Ritmico, rhythmically. Scherzando, playfully or joking. Semplice, simple or plain. Sonoro, with resonance. Sostenuto, abbreviated as sost, sustained. Tranquillo, calm. Triste or tristamente, sad, sorrowful. And now a very few final Italian words. Ad libitum, at choice. Alla breve, with a minim beat rather than a crotchet or quaver beat. Assai, very, for example, allegro assai, very brisk. Attacca, go straight on to the next part of the music without a break. Ben, well. For instance, ben legato, well smooth. Col or con, with. Come prima, as before. E or ed, and. Ma, but. Meno, less. Molto, very or much. For example, allegro molto, very brisk. Non troppo, not too much. For example, allegro non troppo, brisk, not too much. Or allegro ma non troppo, brisk but not too much. Non, not. Poco, a little. Poco a poco, little by little, gradually. Be careful with the word poco. If you see poco crescendo, it means a small getting louder. But if you see crescendo poco a poco, it means get loudly, gradually, or little by little. Più, more. Prima or primo, the first. Quasi, as if, or resembling. Sempre, always. Senza, without. Simile, in the same way. Subito, suddenly. And finally, troppo, too much. And that's what you probably think of the long list you've just heard. Troppo. And now for the French words I promised you. Anime, animated or lively. Douce, sweet. Lent, slow. Modéré, at a moderate speed. Retenu, held back. Vite, quick. And the 6 German words on the syllabus. Lebhaft, animated or lively. Langsam, slow. Massig, at a moderate speed. Note the umlaut, the 2 dots on the A. schnell, quick, ruhig, peaceful, and finally, traurig, sad. Congratulations on getting through these 3 lessons on musical terms, signs and symbols. In lesson 4, we're going to look at a few terms which you ought to be familiar with because they are to do with the piano. We'll also spend a little time on ornamentation, trills, mordants, turns and the like. See you soon.